So we are headed out on our first trip in the F-150 Lightning. So I spent the last 2 or 3 days with the truck on the 120 AC charger at home, trying to get to 100%. Even Ford recommends that if you're going to take a trip, go ahead and set it to charge to a full 100%. So that's what I did. And when I left the house, it was showing around 314 miles of range. So you can see here that at the moment I'm using the Blue Cruise system. Again, I'm not one of these guys that really cares all that much about the fancy stuff, but they give you a 90-day free trial. So I figure, hey, why not show this party trick off to the wife and use it a little bit, enjoy it before it goes away, because I'm certainly not going to pay for it, especially at the exorbitant prices that Ford wants for the system. And I have found that there are very limited roads in my area that it even works on anyway. I mean, this road right here is what we call a parkway here in Kentucky. 4 lanes, 70 miles an hour, and the Blue Cruise will work here. But all the other 4-lane roads that we're going to be on this trip, it doesn't work. So she thinks it's fun, and I guess that's what matters. So anyhow, we're headed down the road, and it's very comfortable. I'm enjoying the comfort of these seats and listening to the radio a little bit. And the adaptive cruise control is nice because you can see my buddy in front of us pulling the boat, and I can just set the adaptive cruise, and that way it automatically keeps the distance between us that I want. I don't have to keep turning cruise on and off constantly, so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, we're hoping to have a good trip, and I think the F-150 Lightning is going to be a good road trip partner. I have already mapped out a few spots that I can hit a public charger if I end up needing to, but I don't think I'm going to need to. I know I won't need to on the way down to the lake. Not 100% sure yet on the way back, but anyway, we got plenty of range here to get where we're going to our destination at Dale Hollow Lake and get set up to have a good time for a while this weekend. So we're just enjoying this new truck. It's pretty quiet on the inside. Can't hear it right now because I've got the radio on, so I kind of killed the volume so I don't get a copyright strike. But it's pretty quiet on the inside, and like I said, comfy. You've got the auto climate going and everything, so pretty nice overall, especially coming from that really rough riding F-250. I mean, that thing would just beat you to death. It was a workout for your kidneys. The F-150 rides so much better. So at this point, we are over 90 miles into the trip. What I did was I made a mistake, and I didn't reset the trip meter until we were like 31 miles down the road. I was like, oops. So I have to add 31 miles to what the trip meter is showing. So anyway, we're over 90 miles into the trip. We're averaging around 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour. There's so many people online that say they get about 2 to 2.1. This truck's been showing 2.8 to 2.9 the entire time I've owned it. So I'm pretty happy with that. You can see we got a lot of range left. The wife and I are just counting all the Dollar General stores that we see along the way. Boy, there are a lot. But we should be to our destination pretty soon. Well, we had a successful first day. Got all the way down here to Dale Hollow Lake, which was at least a 2-hour drive, and I still got 62% of my battery remaining. So I'm pretty happy about that. Left the house with 314 miles of range, and now I've got 190 miles of range left after a 2-hour trip down here to the Tennessee-Kentucky state line. So that's not too bad. In theory, I could get all the way back home on this one charge, but if I can find an outlet down here somewhere, I may go ahead and hook it up and add 10 or 15% anyway before we head out, just to give me a little bit more buffer, but I'm telling you, I love this thing. It's doing great so far. Very, very nice. So we spent a lot of the time doing some swimming and some hiking. In this case, if you go that direction, there's a huge waterfall, and if you go back that direction, you can see the lake over there. So we just spend a lot of time walking around. The wife likes to look for cool rocks and things that she can maybe make jewelry out of. And we like to take a hike down the creek bed to this really huge waterfall that's at the end. And if it's warm enough outside, we will actually kind of crawl up the rocks into the waterfall and play around in it. Today it happens to be a little bit chilly outside, and so we didn't really get into the water in the waterfall very much. But man, what a cool feature. This area of Kentucky has a lot of caves and waterfalls and really awesome geologic features to check out. You can see how big this particular waterfall is, and like I said, just a really cool thing to see, to be honest. So
it's buried in the ground.
Now, normally this area right here's got a pool of water in it, but we're kind of in a drought right now, so not much water filling it up. But you can just see how big this waterfall is way up to the top there. Certainly don't want to climb to the top of that because you could fall off there and get hurt. So after we finished hiking, we headed back out on the water again. Did a little bit of swimming and fishing. We stopped and had some lunch, ate some food, and just what people do. Spend some time together, away from work. They always have said that a bad day on the lake is better than a good day at work, right? So, awesome. So we got back from the lake trip last night, and I drove the truck to work today too. I just kind of wanted to show you this. So I averaged 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour. Now, I forgot to reset the trip meter until we were 30 miles down the road. So that's actually about 285 miles that I've driven on this tank. And as you can see, it's showing 117 miles remaining. So what I did do is while I was at the lake, they've got a couple of outlets out in the parking lot for the boaters. The boaters like to keep their batteries on board charged up while we're parked there, at the lake. And the lady at the front desk told me, she said a lot of the time she sees people plug, electric vehicles into those outlets if boaters are not using them. So there were a couple of nights that I hooked this up on a level 1 charger and added 20 or 30 miles of range to it over the course of the 2 days. I really just charged it at night. I didn't want to leave my cable out there in broad daylight. So anyway, I added a little bit of range, not a whole lot, but a little bit of range to this. But I'm really happy, man, to be able to go 285 miles. I think I've spent like $13 because I charged it up at home before we left, and here I am driving it to work today too. I mean, I'm pretty happy with this. It's nice. Yeah, so look, everybody is apprehensive about these electric vehicles, and I will raise my hand because I was one of those guys. Like I said in the other video, I'm a old-fashioned kind of guy, I guess you would say. I love my gasoline and diesel engines. That's what I grew up with, like most people, and that's what I'm used to. And I just have learned to have a lot of faith in them, and actually have learned to work on them a little bit over the years. I'm by no means a mechanic, but I've learned enough that I can work on a lot of things, gasoline and diesel related. So that's just what I know. And, so I went into this very skeptical like most people, but being able to take that trip with no inconvenience to me or my family whatsoever was really nice, because what that did basically was it settled my nerves down a little bit. I mean, when you first get an electric vehicle like this, the range anxiety is pretty strong because you just don't know. You don't have any reference. You don't have any frame of reference, and so you don't know how it's going to work out. you don't know exactly how far you're going to be able to make it before you have to recharge, or what the experience of having to recharge is going to be like, or any of that stuff. You know, you're going into it brand new, you know, and so you have a lot of range anxiety and, you know, a lot of skepticism, you know. And so, like I said, taking that trip, going down to the lake, 140 miles one way, 140 miles back, and then I drove to work and back another 40 miles round trip today. That really set my mind at ease, you know. Now, it doesn't cure all the problems, but at least now I feel a lot better about this truck. You know, we were able to go from the, you know, I live in the bluegrass region of Kentucky, not too far from the Lexington area, for those of you who are familiar, to be able to go all the way to the Tennessee-Kentucky line at Dale Hollow Lake State Resort Park, have a good time, and then drive all the way back. You know, that's a pretty decent trip, you know, and it was just awesome to be able to do that. And like I said, while I was down there, I found some regular 120 outlets out in the parking lot that the boaters normally use, and they told me I could use them. So when we would go to bed at the lodge, I would hook the truck up at night and just let it charge overnight for 8 or 10 hours and get just a little bit more juice back in the battery. I did that 2 nights, so that helped extend the range a little bit for free, I guess you could say. I'm sure that's included in the price that I paid for the lodge room somehow. But anyway, the point is, you know, it was great to be able to take that trip. So that's our first successful trip in this truck, something that we normally would do anyway. We always take a summer trip to the lake. Usually we've had gasoline and diesel engines, and now we've done it in an electric truck. So that, not that we didn't know that it could do it, but when you do it, you know, it just makes you feel better. It proves to you that, hey, this is going to be all right. So fantastic. Now, briefly, I just want to talk, now that I've had a couple of weeks under my belt here, I want to talk about this Lightning truck very quickly. Some things I don't like about it, some things I do like about it. First of all, let's start off with the cons. This thing is loaded with safety features and driver assistance features. I mean, it's just menu after menu after menu of nannies, as we would call them, and I can't stand that. Again, I'm an old-fashioned dude. I don't like all that crap. I want to drive the truck, you know. Now, there's certain things I appreciate. I appreciate the automatic high beams, so I don't have to constantly work the, you know, the control. I like the adaptive cruise control. You know, I was following my buddy home. I was following my buddy down there, and then I was following him home. And so I was able to just set the adaptive cruise, and I didn't have to fool with anything else. You know, the truck just kept that distance for me. I like that. That's pretty useful. You know, but for the most part, the lane centering stuff and, you know, the hands-free stuff and all the other things that this truck will do, I could care less about that stuff. I don't really care. You know, I would rather not have it, to be honest with you, because it's distracting. It takes your focus off of driving. I believe it actually makes people worse at driving. Having all this stuff on a vehicle, I believe, makes them worse at driving. You know, you should be able to just focus on driving and drive the vehicle, you know. Anyway, so that's one of the cons, in my opinion. I'm going to show you some stuff on the interior here that I'm actually not too thrilled about. All right, as far as the interior complaints go, it's very, very minor and kind of nitpicky. But the first thing is the shifter. So most vehicles that have a console shifter like this have the safety release button on the side of the shifter. So when you put your hand naturally on the shifter, you use your thumb to press the button, and that unlocks it and you can shift, right? Well, Ford didn't do that. Instead, they put it kind of in the front, but it also kind of wraps around the bottom. So instead of just being able to lay your hand naturally on the shifter, you have to reach around like this to operate the lever, which allows you to shift from position to position. And so look at the way that your hand is to operate that. You know, it's like you're trying to dig a hole or something. I mean, it's just not a natural ergonomic feel at all. And that actually took me a while to get used to. I don't understand that. I just don't get it. Why couldn't they put it on this side or this side like normal, so that when you grab it, I mean, this one would be easier. You got your thumb over here. You could just lay it on there, push the button with your thumb, like every other vehicle I've been in with a console shifter. Instead, they had to make you wrap around like this. Funny thing about that is I have the same complaint about this console lid right here. You've got the front of the lid right here, and then if you move your fingers down, you feel another surface right below that. And then if you move your fingers down again, you feel a third surface down there. Well, that happens to be where they put the button at. So again, you have to look how my hand is. You have to wrap your hand around like this and push the button in to unlock it and open it up. I mean, look at the position that your fingers and your hand are in. That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Why not just put the button up here where you could naturally lay your hand on there, operate the button, and lift the console lid up? Why not do that? Instead, they make you go all the way down here, and I got long fingers, man. I'm a dude, you know? I can't imagine being like a small lady, and you have to go way down there and find that button and then press that in. That's the other thing. You have to press it in. It's not like you lift it up. You have to press the button in. Again, maybe it's nitpicky, but stuff like this drives me crazy. How did stuff like this even go into production? Did anybody test drive these trucks? Did anybody actually use the truck for a while? I don't know. But again, nitpicky stuff, but it just, they should have thought of that kind of thing. Having said that, I have since learned that you can actually take this shifter out and put a rotary dial shifter in there from like the, I don't know, I think the Ford Bronco uses them. There's other Ford vehicles that use them. It's just that rotary dial like we've seen on Ram trucks for years and years and years. There's a simple way to retrofit one of those into here. I might end up doing that. I don't know. But other than that, those are my really only two big complaints. Well, there is one more thing. I don't like this 15-inch screen because you don't have any physical buttons for the HVAC, you know? Like, look, let me see if I can turn this on. Well, I don't have the key with me, but when you want to turn the HVAC off, it took me forever just to figure out how to turn it off. There's a button down here in this area when the screen is on that you have to go into that menu, and then you wait for it to load, and then there's a button up here you hit to turn it off. You know, why not have physical buttons for the HVAC controls? I mean, if you want to do the radio and menu features, driver assistance features and stuff like that through the screen, okay, whatever. But you should always have physical buttons for your basic controls like HVAC and stuff like that. It's just too distracting when you're going down the road, especially when you're new to ownership and you don't know where everything is located yet. You're going down the road and you're trying to figure out how to do basic functions like that, and you're sitting here clicking around. Well, if you're doing that, then obviously you're not watching the road. It drives me crazy. Come on, Ford, put some physical buttons down here so I can just turn the AC on and off, so I can change my temperature real fast and keep rolling. I don't want to have to look through menus to operate basic things on the vehicle, you know? Anyhow, that's about my only complaints, though, is just some of this stuff. I mean, the layout overall is really good. It looks nice. It's got a lot of features. The seats are comfortable. Steering wheel's not too bad. I think it's a little bit too thin up here. It's almost like they made this for women and children, but the feel of the material is good. You got good places to rest your hands. The mirror is great up there. Not so great out here, but you got a good rear view mirror. I don't know why a $72,000 truck doesn't have home link buttons to operate your garage door, but I guess you can't have everything, right? Overall, this is a really great cabin. It doesn't look wild and fancy like some of the other EVs, and I appreciate that. This is just an F-150, and that's pretty nice. That's what I wanted. And, you know, really that's about it. It takes this truck a long time to charge up, but it takes all electric vehicles a long time to charge up right now, so you can't really fault it for that. Technology will advance, you know, but my list of things I don't like is pretty small. Now, one thing I did notice on the way down there and back that I don't really care for is these mirrors. You know, I used to talk trash about the towing mirrors on the Super Duty, but I'll tell you what, these mirrors right here are terrible, and now I kind of miss the mirrors that I had on the Super Duty because The Super Duty mirrors, of course, are taller, which enhances your field of view behind you. And they've got those, what they call spotter mirrors down on the bottom, right? So with those Super Duty mirrors, and I guess the F-150s that have the max tow package or whatever they call it, I guess you can get those mirrors on the F-150. I don't know. But anyway, what it allows you to do is, with that big tall main glass, you can see a large field of view behind you. And then with a little spotter mirror down here, you can see your blind spots. And you can also see your rear tire, which is helpful when you're backing into a parking space. Well, with these little bitty mirrors that are on this Lightning, all of that field of view is gone. You can't see the tire when you're backing into a parking space. You can't see very high in the lane behind you. You just have a much smaller field of view, and honestly, it kind of sucks. These mirrors are terrible. Kind of reminds me of the Jeep Gladiator and Wrangler that I used to have. I had those little bitty mirrors on there, and you just couldn't really see anything out of them. They were worthless almost. So I don't know what Ford was thinking here, but that's a con. Now, as far as things I love about this truck, it's quiet, obviously, it's smooth, it's comfortable and all of that. But I just like the usability of the truck. I mean, you have all this space under the front here. You've got obviously a pretty decent sized bed on the back, and you've got the second row back there. You can fold the seats up and put stuff. So essentially you have a lot more storage space in this truck, and some of it hidden underneath here is secure, which is nice. So like right now, I don't have a bed cover yet. So I found that my wife and I just put our luggage and stuff in here, to go on this trip to keep it secure and out of the weather. And we just put coolers in the bed of the truck. So that worked out great. I like having that additional storage. That's really nice. And, like I keep saying, the other thing I just like about it is that it's an F-150. There's nothing crazy and wild about it. It's just an F-150 that happens to have electric motors instead of a gas or diesel motor. So it works well as a pickup truck. And I'm finding that I really appreciate that a lot. These LED lights, by the way, super bright. On this channel over the years, I've had a lot of aftermarket LED bulbs that I've retrofitted into trucks that are super bright, but they're also really expensive. And these, right out of the factory, are every bit as bright as those lights that I used to put in my trucks on purpose. I would pay $200 or $400 for a set of LED bulbs that would really light up everything and had a perfect beam pattern. Well, these are every bit as good as that aftermarket stuff. I mean, I really like the light output that these were giving me last night. I felt like I could see the sides of the road really well. I could see out in front of me really well. On high beam, they're just ridiculously bright. So I have a good field of view, and I really appreciate that. In fact, it's so good that I don't know if I'm going to put my cube lights back on this truck or not. Haven't decided yet, but yeah, just some early thoughts there. I really am finding that I like this truck a whole lot more than I expected. So we'll do some more adventures with it. It's going to be around for a while. Can't wait to see what we can get into with this thing. Electricians are coming the day after Labor Day to install my level 2 charger in the garage. So that'll be a game changer. That'll really help me out. But yeah, it did great. We had a lot of fun. I'm glad to be home, but we had a lot of fun. And I'm glad that the truck did exactly what we needed it to do with no inconvenience to us. So good job, Ford, on this truck. There's just a few little things you guys need to fix. But overall, I think you've got a great product on your hands here. It's always good to have flexibility and options. And for most people, this would be a great option. There are some people that, you don't want something like this. It's not going to work out great for you. But for a lot of people, this is a great option. One that you shouldn't skip over. I mean, heck, I spent $13 filling this truck up and drove it 300 miles this weekend on 13 bucks. Can't beat that with a stick. My diesel truck would have cost me $100 to fill up. So it is what it is. All right, there'll be more coming on the Lightning, but I got to get some other stuff done. Appreciate you watching. We'll talk to you later.